Hello, Key. Hi, Karen.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are across the globe. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Key.
Hi.
I'm excited that you're here. That's amazing. I'm just going to double check that this is recording. I found that it wasn't recording last time, so I just want to make sure. Hi there, Karen. Good to see you. I'm just going to pause and no, just make sure that we have it. Hi, Namella. I'm excited that you're here. Excited. Yeah, this is amazing. And I'm going to go straight in. And Namela, it's great seeing you. I know we connected last week in person in London, so that was amazing. And we have Tom here. Hi there, Tom.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
Okay, we're going to dive straight in. So we have quite a lot to get through. We have 1 hour together. And I am gonna, if you're visual, you're like me, I like to have slides. So just to kind of give you, that's how I learn. So I like to kind of provide slides and I'll happily share those with those I've got email addresses. I will do that. And we will get cracking. And I am going to ask you a question before we get started. So we have a few newcomers. We have Namela, who's new. We met last week in person. We were doing a talk, so it's great seeing you. Karen's new. Tom, Key, I know you've been on these sessions. And so we run, these are bi-weekly sessions. They run every other Wednesday and they run for 1 hour. This week, because of the time change, I'm unsure why that happens every year. I mean, it'd be great if we kind of synced and we had that we had. Hi there, Richard. Good to see you. Um,
Morning, everybody.
oh, okay. David's wanting the link. I'm gonna double check that I can. I'm sure David's on the WhatsApp group in the WhatsApp group. So I'm just gonna double check. I'll message him. Um, is who's actually Richard, are you in the WhatsApp group? So perhaps you can just ping him to say that he's probably forgotten. He thinks it's going to be in the LinkedIn message, but I share it via our private group. So I don't put it on LinkedIn, just so that if you have it, that would be great. So it's good to see you. We've got Karen, and like I said, we've got Karen, we've got
Um, I'll find it. Yeah,
if you do, yeah, I'd
there we are.
appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you, Richard. That's brilliant. Okay. I pre so I'm always it's brilliant, right? So okay, so as I was saying, every 2 weeks we run these sessions and we're an hour early for the UK folk who are on here. We normally run these from 4 to 5 UK time and 11 a.m. in in yeah, so Eastern, right? So just to kind of be mindful of that. Thanks, Richard. I appreciate that. Um, Okay, so as I was just saying, I like to get started with this question. Actually, before I do that, how many of you here, just to kind of say, if this is, it's a binary question, want to know yes or no. How many of you here are actually using AI browsers? If you can raise your hand, you can raise your virtual hand. If you're completely new to it, that's okay because you're in a perfect. So, Richard, you do. Okay, brilliant. Who else here is using AI
Well,
browsers? Karen is fantastic. Karen, you are brilliant. Okay, Richard, you are as well. Brilliant. Okay, which one are
to
you?
some degree. I mean, obviously, Chrome has integrated Gemini, so it's not quite the same as an AI browser, but it's an AI-enabled browser. As you know, Google's obviously entered the foray to compete against OpenAI and others in that space. But a lot of these things are only available in the Mac world or the Apple world. So I'm an Android user, so boo.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? We're gonna see this kind of playing out, and it's gonna be an interesting one. Hi, Kathy. Good to see you on. Like I said, I'm gonna share my. Hey, Kathy. Nice seeing you.
Nice seeing you too. Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're more than welcome. It's always good to have you on. Okay, so I'm unsure why. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to start with my slides. So today's session, just to kind of give you a bit of a head start. So dawn of Delegate and execution, navigating the AI native browser revolution. Like we are actually seeing this at this present moment. Lots happened in the last week. I will be sharing links with you in the chat in a few moments where you can get a bit more information. I will, of course, show you kind of behind the scenes what happens. So for those of you who haven't started kind of exploring what's happening in this space, as Richard was saying. So, we're kind of seeing yeah, we've got some of these features available for paid members. We'll talk a little bit about that in that OpenAI, what's happening with their kind of AI browser at the moment. I'll show you behind the scenes a little bit. So we're moving away from search and click to power delegation. So this session brought to you by Leaderize. So we're looking at igniting change in AI today. So these are bi-weekly sessions, run every other Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. UK. So thank you for those folk who are on early today. I appreciate you coming in a little bit earlier. So today's session, we're exploring the AI browser landscape. This presentation, as I was mentioning, brought to you from Leaderize, it's looking at the shift moving away from traditional browsing. We've already started seeing that, as Richard was saying, to AI native experiences. So ensuring that we move beyond surface level awareness to genuine strategic capability. So we're going to see what's happening behind the scenes. So there's a shift from search and click to delegate and execute. Like I said, understanding the paradigm, we're seeing this whole shift in the way we're interacting, and you're going to see what's been happening. Latest insights, who's leading the charge? Who's kind of leading at the forefront of this? And it's getting quite competitive, and you will have seen the latest kind of announcements by OpenAI. You will have seen what Microsoft Copilot have done and what is actually happening. And we're going to see Google. I mean, we're going to see massive changes, and let's see how it kind of folds out in the next few weeks. Key benefits. So what's happening? So it's exciting. It's what we're seeing. It's gaining a lot of attraction because of its efficiency. It's becoming more personalized and allowing productivity enhancement. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means. Potential risks. I mean, everything we do in these bi-weekly sessions, we also want to be mindful that we don't run and kind of think that this is all okay, but just to mitigate and protect ourselves as we go and try out these tools, or when we're actually, when we're using these tools, and how much do we allow the agentic AI to kind of, like just to be mindful that when you're I'll say a little bit more about that. But when you are actually, especially in Atlas, this is the new kind of, OpenAI's AI browser. You can see, and you'll see what I mean by that, that how much you don't want to expose yourself. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So just to be a little bit mindful of these agentic browsers, AI browsers, right? So there are risks attached. Navigating wisely, best practices. So we'll look at best strategies and impact on us, as some of us are business owners here, others professionals that are working, knowledge workers who are using these tools. So what does that mean for us in this space? Okay, so what's the big shift that we're talking about? As we saw what Richard just said, that we're seeing this with Google coming, and already they've got that kind of capability. So we're seeing the traditional way where we've had likes of Google for the last 2 decades. They've been the big gateway into how we search, right? So this is going to be a massive shift. We're seeing a shift in the way we, when we're looking for information. So so for those who are in business, we pay for ad clicks, that type of thing. So keywords. So click is going to change through multiple search results, synthesizing information across sources, and executing tasks manually step by step. So traditional way, or the old way of doing things, that's how it was being has been done
Yeah.
for many of us up until kind of now, where we're seeing a lot of these changes behind the scenes. So we're already seeing that. I'm not saying this has just been the last week with Sam Altman. You will have seen the announcement with OpenAI. This has been happening for a while with likes of Comet, Perplexity. We've seen Arc, Deer. We've seen Brave, for example, with their privacy kind of behind the scenes, if you've been following it. So what's the shift? So now we're getting the more conversational. Why did likes of OpenAI do this? We've got conversational contextual prompts. We've got zero-click answers with intelligence summaries. I mean, it's if you haven't tested those out, we're seeing a lot we can do. We can stay in one place where most of what we're doing stays in one place, and actually without kind of jumping between kind of cutting and pasting, which traditionally we will have done. We're able to kind of do most of it kind of on one window, if you like. So all AI executes complex multi-step tasks, things like booking flights, restaurants. It can make purchases, that type of thing. So it's really getting interactive at that point. As I'm going through some of this, we will have an opportunity to ask, for us to kind of, if you've got questions, and like I said, I will show you as well. So if I'm missing any
Yeah.
questions, please kind of just let me know and I will stop and answer questions as I go through. So,
I think there's one word, Bally, that might be missing in this whole thing, and that is these new AI browsers were all about agents. And you talked about the kind of the multi-step process where you can go into a new browser, and I know you're going to talk more about that, but yeah, agents is really where it's all headed. The
yeah.
multitask, multi-layered kind of approach. But with that, as we'll talk later, it does bring some security risks.
Absolutely. It's the agentic feel. And also, if we think about how OpenAI are looking also at retaining memory in their searches, that's a kind of feature too, right? So it kind of remembers the searches we've had previously. It can also, with Atlas, for example, which is kind of OpenAI's kind of project, well, actually browser, AI browser. Again, what we can see is it contains a memory, kind of if we're going in, it will remember. And again, there's certain things we need to be mindful of, kind of it might just be understanding our behavior much more to a personal level, which we're seeing that anyway, but we're seeing much more of that. But that's a great point, yeah, Richard. Kind of the agent component, which we talked about 2 weeks ago, kind of the agentic kind of space, which we're seeing much more of. So OpenAI launched
Yeah.
Atlas, you will have seen. So it's integrated with the conversational interface. So, when this happened a few days ago. And then 2 days after that, what we saw was Microsoft Copilot with Edge kind of announcing. So it's like suddenly we're seeing these like big players coming out, and there's like this, like I would say this kind of war that's going on at the moment with these big players. But and then we've got obviously Google, Gemini, and Chrome, which Richard mentioned about. So we've got direct answers with sophisticated search integration as well. So and these are only the few, right? So we'll see. So what does this mean for likes of Google? And what about us as those who are looking at kind of this space? If you haven't, like, as we were saying, so if we're using likes of AI browsers, which we'll see in a moment, most of us who've been coming on to the bi-weekly perhaps have been using Perplexity. Comet is their AI browser, right? So you'll see, I've got both of these, I'll show you. And the other one I started using a while back was Arc's Deer. Again, some of these names might be new, but the functions, if you like, do this kind of, they are what we're calling these AI browsers. And that means like, and as Richard was saying, it's agentic and it kind of understands when to take over. It literally does take over and start doing tasks for you. And it's a bit like I don't know if you've done this before where you've had someone in your, department where you've had someone in your tech department coming in and suddenly they've got control of your device and operating system and you're like, wow, they can do this. This is what's happening now with these agents and you'll see that. So with this in mind, so what we're seeing is um, traditionally where we've looked at 80% of users now rely on immediate AI generated answers. So this is hugely impacting Google. So we're going to see they've dominated kind of 68% of like that market into searching. So there's going to be an interesting way how we engage online. So we're seeing already a massive reduction in that traditional way of searching online. Local AI processing. So just to kind of think about integrated privacy and memory, um, this is something that each of us here have to become more mindful of as we go through because as we start having agents and they are booking flights or we're booking hotels, then we'll talk a little bit about that. There's a bit that, how much control we can always take back that control, right? We'll see that. Agent-based workflows. So we've got multiple steps. We've talked a little bit about this before. Um, the other thing is, as you're going through this space, a lot will be you'll be thinking about kind of your own experience as users, how we're going to be using it. And so, it's going to save time, right? Think about streamlining and condensing hours into minutes, thinking about those complex tasks like booking flights, scheduling, where you may have had someone appointed to do that, or even like in the working space. But personally, again, it's going to change a lot in this landscape. Personalization, context, experiences, preferred working style. It's going to start remembering how you're interacting, and it will offer you helpful suggestions based on your behavior. So, Richard, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. I don't mean to
No,
interject,
no, no, it's
and
good.
I'll
It's good.
definitely respect. It's one thing that occurs to me is right now, most of your browsing experience is also laden with ads. Google ads follow us everywhere, and you talked about how, OpenAI's browser and many of these browsers will collect our information and similar to the way ChatGPT has our custom instructions and basically that kind of follows us along. But I think a lot of us now have this browsing experience where, like, if you're using Google Chrome, um, the top 10 listings are always paid for. So the
Mm,
value of the Google search engine has greatly diminished, which is why they predict by next year at this time, large language models will surpass Google as the primary search engines. And I don't know if it's a consequence of that, or this is just where everything is going. And, on another program, I'm sure you'll talk about AI SEO, which is
yeah.
now the new hot button moving away from traditional SEO. But I'm just curious if, with these new AI browsers, at what point are we going to start seeing, because obviously Google's primary revenue source has always been through the ads that it runs on Chrome and how it collects the data and uses that through its Google Ads ecosystem. I'm curious to see whether or not the large language models companies will kind of duplicate that same protocol, or if their revenue generating source is in a different direction, because we all know OpenAI hasn't made any money yet, in spite of who they are and the billions of dollars of VC money that comes in and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's an excellent point, and we're gonna absolutely see a massive shift, and we're going to also see what happens with likes of Apple supporting Google and what will happen. There'll be alliances, possibly. We'll see more of that as they go forward. It's a great point, and actually, I do touch on GO, which is kind of the generative engine optimization, as opposed to SEO, which is the search engine optimization approach, which we've been seeing, right? So we're going to see a massive shift, and it's a great point. What will happen? Because, previously, if we've, like business owners, if we've been paying, and the whole idea of engine optimization is we get presence online and people can search us, what will happen? It will be reliant on LLMs, these large language models, much more because they'll understand kind of sentiment, sort of experiences and personalization, etc. So yeah, I mean, it's a great point, and I think I come on to it in the next slide, possibly. Um, yeah, I do come on to this, but I also wanted to highlight a couple of other points. So I'm going to stop sharing. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you behind the scenes, and I'll show some of the um, kind of key areas of like monitoring your own kind of because there's been backlash, right? You may have seen online. You will have seen the announcement, possibly if you've been following Sam Altman or you've been following this, right? I know Richard has. Richard's really kind of. I know Tom. I know Key, and I know Kathy. Possibly you as well. You may be kind of reading up or hearing a little bit more about kind of what's been happening. But what I want to show you, and I'll continue with my slides in a moment. I just want to double check if any of the others. I'm just going to check if you've got any questions. Yeah, Google is petrified that they will be out of business with the shift. Yeah, yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, let's see how they move in this space. That's a really good point. What will happen because the competitive advantage I see, Richard, and I'll go back to our slides, is Google has been relying economically for paid like the ads, right? So that's been their way of generating income. So now that shift is going to move away. It's going to definitely kind of impact Google as the kind of, the giant in this space, right? Google in this space has been kind of the, if you like, the god of like everybody would go in, and it's like, so now
Right.
it's definitely going to make an impact. So, whereas other players have not been that reliant, and this could be an interesting strategic move where OpenAI now is able to monetize, right, Richard? It's something you were, I think, alluding towards, right? How will they generate income? I mean, for us, it's a really interesting discussion, but as business owners, how are we going to respond to it? What are we going to do in this space that's going to shift, right? So, Richard, you're saying
Yeah.
yes, but most OpenAI stuff is for Apple first. Okay. Yeah, it's
Right.
interesting.
But I agree. The real question is, or the quintessential question is about many of these large language models that really haven't made a profit yet, is what is this leading to? Obviously, yeah, to your point, Google's algorithm and their ads have been the key to their existence since the dawn of time. I mean, Google essentially put every other browser out of business in a very short time because of its algorithm, decades ago. So, but how are they going to replace, assumably the large language models will have a competitor to Google Ads and that whole framework, perhaps in a different construct. But it's their algorithm that's really been diminished because all of the large language models, in effect, now have the horsepower and the capability to, in effect, do what Google has had the edge on, pardon the pun, for decades, and that's the algorithm.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a growing market. It's, that's the thing. There's space for it to expand. And the kind
Yeah,
of search AI browsing search it's exponentially going to grow. That's the kind of thing that we're going to see because of
yeah.
these shifts. So, Tom, you had a question, and then I'll go
Tom
into,
has his mark.
yeah, Tom, thanks, Richard.
Um, yeah, no, it's an interesting conversation. I just wanted to throw something in, and hopefully it's not like way off in left field and disruptive here. But I think it was even yesterday that I saw an op-ed essay written by the person. I don't know if there's one person who was in charge of safety for OpenAI, and said, "How did you notice that Sam Altman said, oh yeah, in December you can write erotic stories on ChatGPT?" It's like, not that I would ever do that myself, But it's like, what's happening here? And he mentioned, again, because I've been pitching for this artificial general intelligence company, kind of an upstart company, which we actually just got an article in Forbes today. If anybody would like to see it, I'm happy to share that. But I've been paying attention to all the news stories, that go out not in front of maybe our audience because we're a little more highly, sophisticated with AI, but for the general public, stories about teenagers who befriend their chat GPT and tragedy follows and all of that. And so this kind of, I don't know if he was a disgruntled employee, but he said he kind of painted the picture that because trillions have been invested and they're not making trillions yet, that's why we see things like advertising and like kind of removing some of these safety guardrails, perhaps. So it's just interesting to see what's going on. And also another thing I'd be happy to share if anybody's interested this weekend. I love Fareed Zakaria show on CNN, and he interviewed an author by the name of Karen Howe, who wrote a book called The Empire of AI about Sam Altman, OpenAI. And it was kind of a pessimistic view, but again, it mentioned that financial gap between what's been invested and what they're making, like what they need to do something.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting. So anyway.
And that's very common with a lot of those gig economy companies, Tom. Like Uber has yet to make a profit. And yeah, they've been around forever and spent billions and billions of VC money. It seems to almost mirror the American economy, right? What is our debt now? $35 trillion and counting, and we're building $300 million extensions on the White House at taxpayer expense. There doesn't seem to be any conformity at all to responsible, reliable economic factors in these companies. It's like, how much cash do they have to burn? It's really incredible. But at some point, you have to pay the piper. So the question is, already it takes what, 30 connections for us now to make a purchase decision, up from like, double from basically a couple of years ago. As these AI browsers roll out and as they begin to, as Bally explained, you know, commandeer our navigational direction and what we're doing, we're only going to get more inundated than ever before, with ads, with, stuff that's going to try to get us to buy stuff, I think, in many ways, because you're right. They have to figure out a formula to make what they're doing profitable. Even though you would think the enterprise slice of the business is where the real money is, but they're going to have to find out a way to make money off consumers.
Yeah, it's and also for us in this space, what does that mean if people are taking that much longer to make those informed decisions? Are we then going to be the ones kind of, are they because there's going to be that noise too, like noise ratio where it gets louder, and then we're trying to work out like, who, how do we verify, right? Talk a little bit about that today. So, and what that looks like. And I'm sure most of us, if you're thinking through this, you're probably thinking, what does that mean for me in this space, right? Um, how do I then sort of, make sure that I'm actually optimizing what I can, right? Ad curator sites come up. Yeah, we're seeing a lot more of that. And we're also seeing a lot more AI generated content, images, but films. We're seeing that with a lot of players. And I can actually share some of those. We won't have time to do that, but maybe that will be one AI session where we look at which of these are AI generated and individuals, because you actually they're becoming so good these days, right? Let me show you. I'll talk about privacy in. Shall I show you what these platforms actually look like behind the scenes? So if you haven't seen them, so of course, I'm sticking to the theme of Halloween, and so I was looking at kind of what tends to happen is um I was thinking, well, how do we get a little bit spooky, right? Things are getting spooky anyway. But like if I want to look at my spreadsheet, I can kind of work, and let me see if I can share. I can ask my agent. You can see when you have Atlas, you've got these capabilities there. You can open your chat as you would. You've still got kind of you can have a new chat here. I might, if I want to get rid of my I've still got like I can upload. I've got some of the things that we've spoken about before where we're attaching files, etc. The other thing that I find, like, would I hand over to the agent? What was happening the other day when I was coming into here? I was getting the cursor, if I'm typing in here, I might start seeing the agent appear. So if I'm showing the kind of agent in this space, I may be able to type in and say, change the date to 30th, right? So maybe I'm having my party on the 30th. Sometimes it's able to do that in this, but you can see now this is me not doing anything, but it can then look at kind of my file and, might change the date. Let's have a look. So this is an agent, and I've got kind of control where I can stop it, and but this is me not doing. Look, my hands are here, so I'm not like this is kind of what happens. You'll see this kind of almost like snowflakes. You get this kind of foam appearing on your screen, and then it's kind of asking you
So,
to,
Bally,
yeah,
sorry, Bally. So this is an Excel spreadsheet that you have open on your desktop,
yeah,
and the ChatGPT browser is interacting with this document.
yeah, yeah. So that's kind of one example of that where I've actually had it spreadsheet when I was doing something the other day where I was putting down, yeah, that's kind of the party. So we're moving from Friday to the 30th, and I'm not doing anything. So yeah, it's got control of my document here, and it's kind of uploading and changing. It's a little bit slow, and it might be that because we're on Zoom. Some of the things that, yeah, so it's able to do things like that, right? Um, there's a lot more that I've been doing with it, but that was just one example of what it can do. If I change the date, did I add the date in? It looks like we currently have Halloween party spreadsheet open at some tiles and notes, but there is an obvious date column. So change the date to 30 could clarify exactly what you mean. Okay, so yeah, can we add this at the top of perfect? Let's have a look. So, okay, so I wasn't giving it clear instructions, and that's not great. So, so hopefully, because I still need to kind of tell you what to do, right? That's the sort of thing that we've been kind of saying, kind of these, models to do, like clarify what we want it to do, and I'm like forgetting to tell it to do the thing I want it to do. Yeah,
So,
so
Bally, in
yeah.
essence, you can use the agent in the Atlas browser to basically manage all of the tabs that you have open on the browser, and basically the agent can affect changes if it's a spreadsheet, if it's a, a Google Docs or something along those lines. So you
Yeah.
use the agent from a centralized standpoint to monitor all of your open tabs.
Yeah, you can, yeah, absolutely. You can get it to do that. And the interesting thing is it actually knows. And so this will stay in my chat window. So for example, if I go back to, and if I'm in, GPT and I open I still have these chats open, right? So I can still go change date to, so it stays there. I can delete that. It's kind of putting the part, it's got this here. But yeah, you definitely, you can have these open, and it can, it kind of does the work for you behind the scenes. So yeah. Um, the other thing, and it knows when to bring in the agent mode too, which is really interesting. Because when I was working, I'll just show you an example. When I was actually working the other day on a spreadsheet, and I was working in Atlas. So Atlas is OpenAI's, just to kind of recap what we've said. And I was working on a spreadsheet, and then the button appears on my on my Google page. I mean my doc, right? Not my Google page, my my Google Doc, and in my Drive. And I could see that I could interact with it, and I've actually can use my GPT chat window within the document, which was really interesting too. So this makes it I mean, in terms of where we're going with this space, which is the direction that we're going to be going. And I'm going to show you something else in this in here as well. I'm curious to hear, like, few people on here are probably listening in. I'd love to hear from you, because we can obviously talk about this. We can show you kind of what was possible, but what's coming up for you at the moment as you're hearing what we're talking about? If you want to share, maybe just kind of what's coming up for you, and I will show you something else that we can do in Atlas, and also we look at Comet, Perplexity, and how they vary. Kathy, what's coming up for you as you're hearing this? Thank you, by the way. Oh, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I just had to blank out for a minute. I just got a call from one of my little mentees. Her husband just had a terrible car accident. So I
Oh,
missed the last little bit there. But I'm super duper excited about everything that's happening. I no longer use Google. I never use Google anymore. I ask AI anything I need to know. I mean, it just comes naturally now, you know. I'm very interested in the two articles that Tom talked about. So Tom, I sent you a little note. I'd love to get those two articles. Um, I'm one of the things that I'm a bit concerned about right now is, when you write, and this may not be directly in alignment with what the question you just asked, but when we're writing and when we use our AI agents, one of the questions that I asked my agent in the very beginning was, is this material mine? And the agent was like, absolutely, it's yours. I mean, and so is you, Richard, Tom, whoever would like to answer that. Is that accurate? I mean, it is mine because I'm the one that's prompting it. I'm the one that's asking the questions. I'm the one that's directing the whole show. Is that accurate?
When you say it's yours, what can
Am,
you explain?
yes. Am I the owner per se? I mean, am I the originator, I guess would be the proper term.
Well, you might be the originator, but buried somewhere deep in OpenAI's terms and conditions, you really see who owns the data. And at this point, OpenAI, ChatGPT, you know, you can basically turn off the aspect where it learns from your data. Don't don't really know if that's possible with Atlas. It certainly is a concern, because do you want your browsing experience to become part of everyone's? And that kind of data basically being, because we all know that data is sold all over the place.
Right.
Um, we even know that ChatGPT for a while, OpenAI for a while, actually exposed its data to the general public internet. So people started seeing their emails showing up on different platforms because OpenAI was sharing it. They had to shut that down because it became a PR nightmare, as you can imagine. So that's a real concern with these browsers. And I know Bally's probably going to talk about some of the security and governance issues with the browsers is, yeah, we know that it's going to learn from our information. Bally's already explained that, because it wants to enhance our buying or interactive experience. But my spidey sense is, yeah, but who else are they sharing it with? And what is that ultimately going to lead to? And that's a really big question that we need more insight, more visibility on. And of course, AI, or large language models in general, have been characterized as black boxes. We don't really know what's going on in the underlying use of our data. Although, it's spelled out in the terms and conditions if you choose to read and thumb through all that. So, yeah, it's a very valid question. I believe that, you're the originator, We're always the originator. But the real question is, where does that data end up? And
Richard, one other thing in terms of what you're saying. So, in terms of publishing, like when you go to write, when you're writing, um, how is that going? Is that an issue? I mean, is it? I don't
well,
know.
it can be because, I mean, again, specifically with OpenAI, they have a lawsuit now with the New York Times. So
Okay.
right now, OpenAI, they're not necessarily learning from your data, but they're storing all of the chat sessions of users right now in perpetuity because of a federal statute. And the reason for that is they're in a lawsuit with the New York Times, and any of that content could be deposed and used in the case. So, you know, I'm a little uneasy about even now about using ChatGPT, knowing that I've turned off and both ChatGPT and Claude holds your data for 30 days. It's kind of a national security thing. And then after that, they supposedly destroy it. Supposedly. Do we know for sure? I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at heart, but these are valid questions. So in terms of these AI browsers, I think, we need to understand, what are they doing with the data? Are they learning from it? Are they repositioning it, in some way that it could be accessible on the general internet and fall into different hands? Yeah, again, I'm not trying to be an alarmist or anything, but these are questions that we need to get some visibility on, because the industry as a general hasn't been they've been more opaque than transparent about these kinds of issues.
Got it. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in one comment. Richard and Bally certainly know more about that topic than I do. But when I first, I've mentioned this artificial general intelligence project that I was working on, and when I first started working on it, they asked me to sign an NDA. So for at least, a week or two, I was like not mentioning the name of the company as I was asking some questions and, crafting a press release and stuff like that. But then later on, when they kind of were open about they want to spread the word, I kind of dropped that or reservation. There was nothing, no trade secrets were going on or being discussed or anything like that. But it's like, Richard and I've been learning a lot from a friend who's really knowledgeable about AI, and he says just assume that anything you put out there will be shared with the world. And I think it was like Mark Zuckerberg. It's like you went into my private chat, so you're sending me ads, but it's like so. I don't know that Sam Altman and company are looking out for our best interests necessarily. So, but anyway, and then some people at this other PR firm said, yeah, when I'm writing things, I don't mention the name of our client, or I must admit, I kind of, like I said, got over that because I don't think I'm touching on trade secrets in any way. But you raised a really great question. And also, I think, just like the New York Times, I think there's a group of authors that sued OpenAI. I forget all the details,
Yeah,
but
and Anthropic, of course, famously paid $8 million for over 2 million books that they downloaded without paying royalties for.
Ooh,
So, yeah, it's a bit of the Wild West out there. So, and to Tom's point, yeah, we have to assume that our data, as best as we can do to try to protect it, there's always the possibility, not necessarily of a breach, but of a terms and condition loophole that can expose our data. So Tom is right. Be very wary about confidential proprietary information that you're sharing in any kind of an AI experience.
thank you so much. I appreciate you both. And Bally, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely key that, we're mindful of what we're sharing, and that kind of brings me on to kind of the next point that we're going to go into here, and then I'll share again with any of these models. We've talked about this, right? So, kind of making sure that we are turning that button saying, do you want your information shared? You can do that. And again, if any of you are new to this and going, oh my gosh, this is like, what does this mean for me? Remember, you can like you've got that opportunity to kind of reach out and we can have that conversation. But potential risks and concerns, and with caution. Any AI browser, it's exciting, and we it's incredible what it does, but it also comes with taking, being precautionary, right? Because we also have to be careful what we're doing. So publisher impact, reduce click-through rates, we've seen that. And also traditional publishers face declining of revenue as zero-click answers keep users within AI interfaces. We're seeing that with Perplexity a lot because people are staying in that space and not wanting to go elsewhere because it's like when you're in that, it's a bit like when you go and have everything in a shop, right? You go to a store where everything's there. You stick to that place, right? So again, we're seeing a lot of changes there. Concentration of power, risk of closed ecosystems controlled by a handful of tech giants. We've kind of alluded towards that, where reduced information diversity, limited user choice could emerge as a dominant platform, dictate access to knowledge. That's why I really want to continue doing these sessions because I will give you a couple of examples what came across this week for me that I didn't get the answers and I had to really get the model to kind of go back and say, you are not. So one of the things I would always encourage everyone to do is when they're using these LLM models to make sure that, that they're not relying on earlier up, like versions of their memory. In other words, if we're looking at any changes, ask it to refer to the most recent information, i.e., I was looking at skills in Claude. I may do a session on skills because I think there's a lot of potential there, but it was giving me the dated stuff, but not kind of the latest. So you've really got to know to prompt and to do it in a way to kind of know your stuff as well, to kind of say this isn't because it was telling me stuff I knew wasn't correct, right? And I knew that information wasn't correct because I've been like I do a lot of triangulation. I text out what's going on and so it was giving me information. I was like, wow, people will believe this. This is not right. Accuracy and bias. AI hallucinates, guys. So we know we've talked a little bit about this before about it hallucinates. Its job to, it's a bit like the scenario we talked about where we have a multiple choice and it kind of like gives you it will pick the answer which it thinks it thinks it might be, right? It makes a guess on the output, so it may not be the correct output. So don't fall for the illusion of understanding, right? So there's a phenomena out there which people tell me that they understand AI until we ask them the question because it's an illusion, and there is a whole phenomena about this. So check for verification. It remains key as you're checking information, right? Security vulnerabilities, prompt injection, guys. We haven't talked about this, and my at the moment in that example where I showed you, we've got bugs. Every system, anything we have, there are bugs in our system. People are like, oh my gosh, there's a bug. Yes, there is. But we can have prompt injections when we're using these AI agentic AI browsers. So just be kind of careful of malicious actors' attacks. So we're talking about how we're training, the models are being trained, but also mindful of when we are, for example, when we go into these AI browsers with Atlas, for example, and you're booking a flight or you're booking something, just to kind of log out of that screen where you're putting your authentication. Always have two modes of that. Don't kind of expose yourself to these being attacked, right? I'm giving you this because I also, as a part of kind of what I want to bring out is just be mindful of these things are, if you've been following some of the news out there, these things do happen. So just to be mindful. So there are privacy concerns. So extension data, when we've had these, sometimes when we get busy, we're like, okay, I'll log in, and then suddenly you've exposed yourself, and then just to be mindful of that. And it can feed into the AI models, creating profiles of kind of vulnerability and breaches or misuse. So just to be mindful that could happen. Now, with these AI agentic kind of AI browsers, there's much more computational costs as well. So we're seeing the agent mode for paid users at the moment. So I'll give you a little bit. When we're seeing Atlas, the version we saw, it's actually for pro users that you've got the agentic features, not for the free users, and hence that's kind of how they are, Richard, in answer to your question, how they're monetizing. That's one way they're monetizing, right, through these subscription models, right? So that might be the way that they do it. Um, so navigating, evolving wisely, best practice, optimize your AI browser experience whilst protecting yourself from emerging risks, verify information, always cross-check and ensure that you are using credible, authoritative resources, avoid hallucination, understanding, confirming facts, especially for medical, financial, legal matters. We've got experts here, or if we don't, we know people we can get to, right? Understanding AI's limitations, right? Remember, we're seeing that there's research actually, we need those humans in the loop. We don't kind of hand these AI agents rein and just let them do their thing. We just have to have these, kind of guardrails, protections, bind privacy settings. Have a look at your settings. If you're not sure, then it's a conversation to be had with myself, or I'll put you in contact with Richard. Adjust data usage permission, understand what information you're sharing and how it's been used. We've just been talking a little bit about that. And experiment with tools. Different platforms offer varying features, privacy policies. OpenAI, in response to kind of what happened in the last few days, have responded and now kind of putting in the safety measures, and you'll see, and they do kind of give you that. And I'm going to give you the links where they made the announcement, which you could go through yourself. I'll share some of those. Um, Comfort level of data setting, right? So how much are you comfortable with? We know that there is going to be that certain trade-off, if you like, on so just to kind of be mindful of how much, but not to give away, you wouldn't leave your kind of door open for people to come in. So why would you do that online? Just to be mindful, stay informed, come to these sessions. We kind of go in, and I'm part of a mastermind, been there for about 4 years. We look at kind of what's happening behind the scenes to kind of bring you these sessions here. And of course, you have then AI revolution. We're talking about the ripple effects is happening on the way we are searching as individual, and as our experiences reshape the way the entire digital ecosystem is shifting. So it enhances AI user interaction. We're looking at security shift, new web standards, which need to kind of come to place. I think this is kind of what we're talking about. Platform monetization, what will happen, that ends fallen there. These shifts highlight the need to move beyond the illusion of past strategies. Don't assume what worked before is going to work moving forwards. Think in how we're going to innovate and move as business owners as we adapt. I'm going to show you a couple of other things. So this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, and I'll share these slides with you. The redefinition of SEO. We talked a little bit about this, but just to kind of emphasize, moving away from SEO generative engine, sorry, beg your pardon, moving to generative engine optimization, which replaces the traditional way of doing things. Shift in advertising models, right? We're going to see a shift. We've talked a little bit about that, and the value proposition, right? So companies are going to be thinking about where they put their investments, and how will they measure their ROI, the return on investment. Competitive dynamics, if we're thinking of browser, we're thinking of already, we talked a little bit about this in terms of browsers war servers proxy battles. Now we're seeing these operating systems and how they integrate this competitive advantage, likes of the big players, Microsoft, Apple, and Google. So it's going to be an interesting few as we move forward, right? Emergence of new niches. We're going to see many more niches coming to surface. We're going to have more, we'll see how this plays out, and we'll bring these sessions, obviously more updates. Search, changing user behavior. That's going to be habits and behavior. We're going to see different ways how younger users are developing traditional informed literacy, raising questions about critical thinking, and of course, something that we talk about, and intellectual independence. What does that mean? Are we becoming too reliant on this? What will happen? So, what this means, we stand at the we're at this place at the inflection point of digital history. This is the point where I look back at kind of going back to the 90s, where where we had internet and everything was changing. This is kind of transforming how we search and we click and delegate and execute. Represents not only merely incremental improvements, but a fundamental actual change in the way we interact online. So there's a dual nature here. Um, so we're going to see a shift in what this means as business owners. We've got the adaptation is going to be key for all of us and everyone else that's kind of out there. It's changing hugely. The agentic future is that word that Richard, you were saying, that's the key word, agent, right? So ready to move beyond the illusion of understanding truly how we leverage AI, because this is kind of the thing. Right, so we got Q&As. There's an opportunity. I will share these with you to have a strategy call with myself. We can talk a little bit about that, and I will show you a few things behind the scenes there too. Let's see if there have been any questions. Human in the loop. Yeah, key. Absolutely. We're going to need these people in the loop. And I'm going to show you kind of something else as well. So I'll show you two platforms before we go. We've only got a few minutes left. And I'm sure there's a lot going on for people as they're hearing this. And it may be the first time for some of us, right, that haven't perhaps even explored Atlas. It's like, oh my gosh, I am going to share with you. Um, I'm going to share with you a few of the let's have a look. Um, articles for you to have a read of. So there's one by Perplexity, talks about safety for Atlas. So that's kind of a nice little read. Some of these are sort of some of the reading that sat behind kind of what was happening, or what I've been looking at, sort of Perplexity talking about security concerns. OpenAI safety. There's also, I believe that's Sam Altman announcing. Yeah, that's the link I've shared with Sam Altman announcing Atlas and having his team there, and it's an interesting watch actually. And also, yeah, this is kind of some of the research that's informed some of the things we've been doing here. So let me show you before we go, and I'm sure you're going to have some more questions. And let me show you what I did with one of my mentors. So this is one of the articles. Some of you have been writing using these. So I know Jarek's just kind of started this. He's one of both Tom and I know Jarek Robbins. His mentor, a friend of mine. He's put an article out today. And if I'm thinking about like having a summary, I may just say something like this, right? If I want to interact with an article of this nature. Oops, oh, I've just stopped sharing. Damn, that's not what I wanted. Okay. Okay, so if I'm just putting something out, I may do something like this, kind of if you're seeing this, and you're going to see, so this is a friend, a mentor, and it's a little bit slower. I've also been looking at, people are saying it's a little bit slower in its outputs than Perplexity, but I think also it's slow because we're on Zoom. But actually, it's not this slow normally. But if I'm asking it to kind of give me, so when we're reading, we can kind of get a summary, we can engage with it. And it kind of gives me an outline of what Jarek talks about in the article. I can do the same with URL links. I can do the same with YouTube clips where it gives me the timestamps, which I find really interesting. If I don't want to watch a whole like a whole 3 hour, perhaps as like a workshop, I can actually then watch and go to those timestamps, and it takes me straight there. But it's a really good way, interesting way, what's happening. But I can also then evoke my GPTs, like some of us have been looking at GPT. So yeah, it's fairly long, but this is kind of the article that it's captured that, which I find really interesting that we can do that. Then with OpenAI, I've got about a minute. I know some of you are thinking there's a lot, right? So we might need another. I'm just wondering whether, because we've not had too long today, but if we go into Perplexity Comet, um, Comet is Perplexity where we're doing the searches. So some of you may have used Comet. Richard, have you used Comet? Tom, maybe you have. I can share these links by the way.
Yeah, actually I have. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty graphically interesting, and I've just started using it, but it's an interesting experience.
Yeah, I think you're saying we need to talk more about how to protect ourselves. Yeah, Namela, it's great seeing you, by the way. I know Namela could only be for an hour, and I will share. Um, so, um, so one thing I did notice in GPT, where we're using advanced voice, we're not able to when we have the GPT open in Atlas. It's not something currently available. I wanted to put that out there. So you might be thinking, then what does that mean? We still have that capability, but not in the Atlas kind of, where we see the advanced voice. The feature in OpenAI with the advanced voice has also changed recently, where it actually has the advanced voice without it having that big kind of round bubble appearing in your screen. You may have noticed that. So I wanted to mention that if any of you have been using the GPT, your GPTs or your, chat GPT, but in that environment. Perplexity, I like a lot. But any of these kind of like AI browsers, we'd be mindful of how we're using it. But it's a great point. We need to be thinking about be mindful of those. I want everybody here to go out and use these AI browsers. And when you are, like in this case of the Google Sheet, you don't want to kind of expose your private data, but you may want to experiment. Go and experiment, and
Yeah,
um, that's the key. It's there for us, and it's yeah, perplexities absolutely. And having perplexity and the comet mode. Let me quickly show you. And I know we've gone over time, so I really appreciate everybody here. So if I'm in here in my GPT, I can still activate my actual advanced kind of voice. However, I haven't got that. Notice that it's asking me to download my GP Atlas, right? And I've already got it. So it's interesting that it's kind of prompting me to do that. And it's also then asking me to set Comet as a default, which I haven't. But you've got the same. What I really like about Comet is again, it's similar. You've got the assistant side by side. It's your companion when you're searching. I can again use my GPT, and then it reads and it changes my URL here. So if I want it to change my URL, I can ask it to do that. It will change my URL, and I can say, well, can you get me the latest one? It will give me the latest one on my screen without me having to kind of remember what that was. So those are some of the things that I've been doing behind the scenes, using AI and the browsing. Yeah, interesting. So I know we've gone over time. I want to thank you for all being here. There's an hour I find is not enough, so I'd invite any, those interested in having a strategy call, wanting to explore, kind of cautious about like what this means, thinking about the settings. How do I even install it? What do I do? How do I protect myself? What is some of the things you've been talking about? Happy to kind of arrange a one-to-one with yourselves to do that. I want you all to kind of be in this space, to be you're kind of at the forefront, because a lot of people I'm speaking to, a lot of people don't know this is happening. So a lot is happening behind the scenes in this. I'd love to bring these to you. And thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Kathy. Great seeing you, Tom. And yeah, brilliant. Hiya. Always good having you on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was
Have a
great.
great
great.
day, everyone.
Yeah, fantastic session. So informative. Thanks, Bally.
You're welcome. Thank you, Hiya. Good
So
to
much.
see you soon. Hey, hi Ben. I didn't see you were there. Oh, we've got the timings. I was I will send you the link. I'll
Yeah, I got
send you
screwed
what
up
we
with the
did.
timing. I
Yeah,
didn't read.
Ivan, I will send you the recording. I stuck to the 11 a.m. Eastern, and I will continue with 4 p.m. next time. I will share what we covered.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, it's just I put it in my diary wrong because I didn't actually read the email that said 3 o'clock and 3 o'clock only this week. Oh, all right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just shush. Wind my neck in.
It's okay. Really good to see you. Really good. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And like I said, I'll share the recording with you. And it was still showing up at 4 p.m. in my diaries in my calendar, so I had to kind of change it. So I will share what we covered, and I'll share the
Oh,
slide.
that's okay. But thank you very much. I just thought I'd show my face. So it was a shot in the dark. So anyway, it was a wonderful. I hope it looks like it was an informative session. So
Yeah, I will share the recording. Yeah. And thank you, Ivan.
awesome.
Speak to you later on.
You
Thank
take
you.
care.
Bye
Bless
now.
you.
Bye. Bye
Salut.
now.
Bye.